Hello, NARC troopers, narcissistic abuse recovery collaborators. I want to say something in response to a recent video that my most esteemed and trusted mentor, Dr. Sam Vaknin, recently posted on trauma and trauma response, because you hear all about trauma, and I'm quite irritated with a lot of people because, they all think they have profound trauma. And, really that's on me. Who am I to judge what they perceive as trauma, which is the whole point of what I want to confirm that I agree with, that it is a subjective thing. I mean, when I scoff at the idea that, oh, you think you have trauma, I'll tell you what trauma is. You have trauma because you didn't get the pony that you wanted on your 6th birthday. Is that your trauma? Boo-hoo. Oh, that's so sad. And I'm being a real jerk when I do that. And I'm going to own that and say that. Who am I to say that that didn't cause some kind of thing? Because really what trauma is that you have all of this stuff going on in the world that's horrible. War, crazy people doing crazy things to you, abuse, prolonged abuse, cataclysmic events that are just, horrific. They're torture. They're, like 9/11 is collective trauma. That's a term used to describe something that we all experience together as like one collective group, one like a tribe or a community, all experiencing collective trauma, like what happened with 9/11. But what happens is that trauma is actually the way we react to something horrific. And you've often heard the saying, and I've heard this a million times, and a million different people have put different spins on it. But essentially, this saying goes that it's not what happens to you in life, it's how you react to it. And a lot of times, we should be able to try to manage our emotions and regulate them and control our feelings, but some of us can't. And when we react in a very negative, crumbly, I'm having a meltdown, and you just, everything about you falls apart kind of way, it's like you're put together that way. You can't blame yourself for reacting that way to this event, because that's how you are. That's your personality, the way that has formed and shaped your identity. It could be, when they talk about generational trauma, they're talking about, a cycle of horrible things that happen in a family that have altered behaviors and perceptions one generation after the next, so that they carry with them the burden of those horrible things and the horrible reactions to those things. And it becomes epigenetic, where it affects your actual cellular structure because of the hormones released and the chemicals and the neurochemicals in your body that are released at those horrific moments when you're experiencing the terrible reaction to it. It affects your on a cellular level. So yeah, this isn't just like, oh, you're feeling bad, take some deep breaths and get over it. And I'm not a trauma denier, because I just think the word is misunderstood a little bit, like trauma being an external event that happens to people. It's your reaction to it, and that could be, your environment. Like if you were raised, let's say you were born and raised in a war zone. You were in Ukraine, or you're in Gaza, or you're in, anywhere in the Middle East, actually, or you're in Africa, in one of those embattled, civil war torn, famine stricken countries, Let's say you're in one of those places and that has been your experience. Then the way that you react to things, the triggers, the responses, the survival, mechanisms that are going to kick in are going to be different from the person who has had a safe and comfortable experience in their childhood. And so there's so many factors that shape how you react to something horrible. And then you have this horrible event that is really awful. Maybe it's abuse by a narcissist and the subsequent discard by that narcissist. Maybe, it's a sudden death, car accident, somebody got cancer, someone close to you died. Maybe it's, uh, something big, something really big that's happened, right? And some people will immediately, they'll have the foundational landscape within themselves to turn to prayer, for example, take it to their church, stand together with their have fellowship, and have that kind of community of support, and they will accept it in a way with an emotional response that isn't just crumbling and melting down and falling apart, as some of us do in the face of trauma because of the things that have happened to us, our environment, our genetics, our genetic components, our personality, how we are, maybe because of mental illness that we have, or disorders or deficits or conditions, and diagnoses and things like that. There's just so many factors that determine that. And so the last thing I want to say is that following a relationship with a narcissist where you have been brainwashed, you have become addicted on a neurochemical level, dopamine level, you have lost your identity, and then they have completely annihilated you, erased you as if you never existed, and gone on their merry way. That kind of trauma that is inflicted on you in that kind of way, sometimes very subtle, where you don't even know you're being abused. It feels like there's something wrong, but you don't know what it is until you get out of it and look back at it, and it's like, holy guacamole, that was horrible. Whatever this was like a horrible thing. Sometimes you don't even know it when it's happening, when it's like a covert narcissist who, sticks in the knife and twists it with a smile and in a very courteous and polite kind of way, the way they're handling the scalpel, the blade. They're still murdering you, and it's still going to produce a reaction that's neurochemical. It's going to involve your peptide addiction and withdrawal from that. It's going to involve it's a somatic experience because you store these injuries, these knife wounds that have been poking at you maybe for years. They're there. You may not have felt them at the time, but those wounds are there. It's death by 1,000 little pokes and stabs and woundings, right? And so, yeah, you didn't bleed out, but you're still like Swiss cheese by the time they're finished with you. Of course, you're going to have trouble. Of course, you're going to want to say all of that trauma, this is a trauma response. And, the narcissist can even say that the reason they are a narcissist in the first place is that it is also a trauma response to whatever abuse or neglect or horrible things that they experienced as a child that required them to essentially murder their authentic selves and replace it with a false self. They're trauma victims, you're a trauma victim. So that word trauma, let's just remember, it is a response to the things that have happened. The event that happened is not the trauma. It is how you respond to it. And the only way that you can respond to a lengthy or even not so lengthy relationship with a person with NPD who has done all of this stuff to you, that's horrible, is to feel that, that you're dying and that you have been murdered, and that you're going to have to figure out how to put yourself back together, or how to, if you can't regenerate, then to create a new version of yourself or something. So I am not diminishing the idea of trauma. I just want a little slight shift in the way that we think about it. The event like 9/11 wasn't the trauma. The trauma was that we saw that as an existential attack on the identity, the soul, and the very fabric of our world. right? And it's similar, a similar dynamic happens in a relationship with these people, that we feel that we have been attacked in a way that is existential. It's solipsistic. It is an attempt to erase you, to make you disappear, to make you cease to exist, so they can take the part that they gobbled up and consumed and go forward carrying that with them. Okay, so I don't think I did a great job of explaining that. I'll try to do it better um, at another time, but I wanted to respond to it while it was on my mind. And it was. So there we are at the 10-minute mark. Gotta go. Much love. Bye.